Welcome to the Cannabis Innovators Show at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Today we are welcoming Mr. Eli McVey. Eli is the research editor of MJ Biz Daily and the 2018 Marijuana Business Fact Book. The reason that we are doing this interview right now is because Portfolio Wealth Global is about to cover a new company utilizing both blockchain technology and the cannabis industry. And we wanted to learn about this key component in the sector from the experts. And with that, we are welcoming Mr. Eli McVey. Eli, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Michelle. How are you?
Oh, just fantastic. We are so thrilled to have you here. Eli, Canada is about to legalize soon. How is this going to change the industry? I understand that they are a leader in their integration model as far as acclimating throughout the country.
Yeah, that's very true. They're an innovator in the industry, that's for sure. They're set to become the first G7 nation to legalize recreational cannabis later this year, which is a major milestone for the industry. They've also, they've set the bar for exports of medical marijuana. No country is exporting more medical marijuana than Canada. Their move to legalize marijuana, adult use marijuana at the federal level is seen by many as a test bed for what could happen if the U.S. Ever decides to legalize marijuana at the federal level. It's attracting a lot of capital, much more capital. These companies are attracting much more capital than those in the U.S. Just with the backing of the federal government makes it a much less risky move. So a lot of people are watching Canada, and everybody agrees that they are a leader in this space.
Wow, that's very interesting. So they're much more attractive, basically, to money than the U.S. is right now.
Absolutely. Here in the U.S., marijuana is illegal at the federal level. And so major companies that have national bank accounts or that are operating in multiple states still see it as too risky to invest in the U.S. marijuana industry. Whereas in Canada, your major medical marijuana producers are listed on the big public exchanges there. These are companies valued, the valuations of these companies are in the billions of dollars. And like I said, the risk is perceived to be much less than it is in the United States. So the money is flowing into Canada, as are mainstream companies looking to get involved in the cannabis space.
Wow. Now, Eli, many other countries are looking to legalize hemp products, as well as other cannabis products that are hitting the shelves. Is the legalization working in California, for example?
Well, legalization so in California, really, it's marijuana legalization rather than hemp legalization that everybody's watching. As it pertains to California's experiment, legalizing marijuana, the rollout has been slow. That's a state that legalized medical marijuana back in 1996, and they're just now getting to where they're licensing businesses at the state level to sell medical and recreational marijuana. They give a lot of control to each county and cities, a lot of control at the local level, which has caused some friction. And, like I said, the rollout has just been slow as companies haven't been able to get both the licenses at the state level and the local level to start operating. And that's given black and gray market businesses kind of a leg up in the industry right now in California. Long-term outlook is good for the state. Short-term, there's a lot of instability. As it pertains to hemp, like I mentioned, there is we've seen hemp products, especially in the food and nutraceutical space, gain traction here in the U.S. It remains to be seen what the ceiling is for hemp and CBD. There is some speculation that hemp could get some traction as kind of an upstream manufacturing material to be used in construction and things like that. But the potential for CBD as a health-based product, as a nutraceutical, it seems to be sky high. A lot of consumers are really receptive to the idea of CBD as a medicine or as a health product.
That's so exciting and such good news for everybody.
Yeah, it really is. There's if CBD could somehow get legalized, which would be different than medical marijuana that contains THC or recreational marijuana. There's been a lot of talk of how much institutional capital would be ready to back companies like that. So it is a positive development. And yeah, acceptance for CBD especially is extremely high in the US.
Oh man, that would bring in so much money.
Absolutely.
Now, Eli, how is blockchain technology being used for verification for the origin of products within the supply chain?
Blockchain in general is just now beginning to see kind of the light of day here in the cannabis space. A lot of it originally started out as a solution to the lack of banking services here, just with the federal illegality of cannabis in the U.S. Mainstream banking service providers were not apt to provide banking services to marijuana companies. Blockchain was seen as a way around that. It is gaining more traction as a seed to sale, as a way to track products from seed to sale, which is mandated by a lot of state marijuana programs. To speak to, I'm probably not best suited to speak to exactly, kind of the specifics of how blockchain technology works. But to suffice it to say that more and more companies are entering this space looking to provide blockchain solutions to the cannabis industry.
That is really interesting, the way the blockchain is taking off, because there's so many variations of the way that could be utilized.
Right, absolutely. And I wish I could speak a little more to the technical details of it, but I think
we just know there's tons of possibilities, right?
Exactly, sure.
Now, Eli, where are the high-paying jobs within the cannabis industry right now?
Oh, well, there are several, especially if you look at the extraction space, companies that are taking raw marijuana and processing it into, high potency extracts or oils to be used in infused products. There's a high degree of technical skill that comes with, running these, really expensive, technologically advanced extraction machines. It can also be kind of a dangerous job if not handled correctly. So, lead extractors, extraction technicians, we're hearing, salaries can range between $75,000 to $125,000, which is an extremely high-paying job.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just on the cultivation side, the move is more towards automation. So less human capital, more automation. But the people that are coming on board these cultivation companies, again, are required to have kind of a high degree of technical skill. A lot of times they'll have backgrounds in biology or chemistry. So as automation takes hold, there might be less jobs in the cultivation space, but we're seeing the jobs that are there are certainly more higher paying.
That's something that's not really talked about a lot, is the fact that a lot of these jobs behind the scene really take expertise.
Absolutely. And, a lot of the expertise, you don't necessarily need to have a background in cannabis to get one of these jobs. A lot of these companies are looking for somebody, like I said, that has technical proficiency, but is also able to implement systems and processes into these grow operations. And that's not something that everybody is able to do. So yeah, like I said, the skill level required of these jobs is increasing, and so is the pay.
That's awesome. Now, Eli, is recreational legalization affecting the medical aspect of marijuana, especially in terms of sales?
Yeah, unequivocally it is. If you look at the states where medical marijuana, with both medical marijuana and recreational marijuana laws, like Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, ever since recreational marijuana, sales started, we've seen patient counts and medical marijuana sales decline pretty precipitously. Nevada patient counts started to decline in the months leading up to the launch of recreational sales in July of 2017, and they've continued to decline. Oregon's medical marijuana program, there's almost no standalone medical marijuana dispensaries left in that state. There used to be somewhere close to 400. Now there's about 16. Colorado, we've seen more of a gradual decline in medical marijuana sales. It still makes financial sense for a lot of people, a lot of medical marijuana patients in Colorado, to go through the necessary hurdles to get that medical card and to purchase from the medical market. They get tax breaks. They have access to higher potency products. But in general, yes, medical marijuana sales have suffered in states where recreational sales have also taken place.
Now, is that because of the hoops you have to go through in order to get it on a medical basis, or is it just because people who need it or want it had a medical card and now can get it recreationally? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's probably a little of both. Like I said, in Colorado, getting a medical card is relatively inexpensive, and the tax breaks are significant. You can see you're not subject to the 15% excise tax, and you're only paying, I believe, it's less than $100 a year. I believe it's actually $50 a year to register as a medical marijuana patient there. So there's incentive to register as a patient. But for many patients who have legitimate medical uses, jumping through those hoops may not be worth it. As we've seen in many recreational markets, the price of wholesale marijuana and then the price of marijuana at retail has continued to decline. So for someone that's doesn't have chronic medical issues and require high doses of THC, the products that they were buying in the medical market, they can get in the recreational market, and the cost might not really be that different. So it's really, there's not a lot of incentive to go through those hoops. So the situations will vary, and there will certainly always be a market for medical products in states that have recreational marijuana, but it's diminished, certainly.
And it's so beautiful, the stories that you hear about, medical marijuana helping people that were not finding any relief anywhere else. It's so much less expensive. It's so much less disruptive to their health, so much more comfort to their families. It's just a beautiful situation.
Absolutely. And, that's something that's gained a lot more attention as people become more aware of the danger of drugs, like opiate painkillers, for example. So it really has the power to change a lot of people's lives for the better.
Now, Eli, what is the hottest trend right now in this industry?
What's the hottest trend?
What's hot?
So in terms of if you look at the retail market, what's gaining momentum? Low THC products. When you talk about like edibles, traditionally edibles have been about 10 milligrams of THC. We're seeing more folks attracted to low THC products, 5 milligrams, 2.5 milligrams, a much more mild experience, a more controlled experience. We're also seeing fast acting edibles. Edibles can often take an hour to 2 hours to kick in, where we're seeing more products developed using formulations and methods of action that can deliver the effects of THC within 15 minutes or so, which is a lot of people are attracted.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's there were some safety concerns. If you get somebody new to say you're in Colorado, you're out of state, you're visiting Colorado, you try an edible, you wait an hour, you don't feel anything, so you eat another one. That
and then you're in trouble.
Not going to be a comfortable experience. So if you can deliver the effects of THC within 15 minutes, most people are after that kind of effect, and it hedges against the concern of people over consuming because they think it's not working. So we're seeing those gain traction. We're seeing like high potency marijuana extracts they appeal to medical users that are looking for large doses of THC. They're also appeal to experienced recreational users. So we've seen those kind of explode onto the scene a couple of years ago and continue to take share from traditional marijuana flower. And we're also seeing vaporizers, vape pens. A lot of people really enjoy those. There's ways to have a more controlled dosage of THC with vaporizers. They're more discreet. They're many people consider them a safer alternative to smoking flower. And in states like Nevada, where there's no really way to consume marijuana legally, like the discretion is a big part of that. People are drawn to the discreet nature of those.
Yeah, I think so too. I think discretion is huge. Now, Eli, do you see any progress right now in terms of federal legalization?
Absolutely. There was, the Cole memo, which was Obama era guidance that gave protection to state legal marijuana businesses, was rescinded at the beginning of this year, which caused a lot of people in the industry it was a cause of concern for many in the industry. But just about a month ago, President Trump, pledged to keep the Department of Justice from interfering with state legal marijuana businesses, which was a big, kind of another major development. So it was been kind of whiplash over these last few months for a lot of people in the industry.
Right. Does he approve it? Does he not approve it?
I know. So not much different from how everything else has gone, I guess, in the rest of the country. But it was seen as a major positive step. And since then, we've seen several high-profile Republicans come out in support of reforming federal marijuana laws. We saw former Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, recently voice his support for medical marijuana after he announced his involvement in a large multi-state cannabis business. We saw Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, introduce a bill to remove federal barriers around hemp. It's a rare example of a bipartisan an issue that has bipartisan support on Capitol Hill. So there's been a lot of talk of federal marijuana policy evolving. What shape that takes, we don't know yet. It could be removing some of the barriers around banking. It could be, removing marijuana from the list of controlled substances. We don't know, but we know for sure that the political winds are shifting. And like I said, it's a rare example of something that has bipartisan support. So we do expect to see movement on that in the short term. Like I said, it remains to be seen what form that takes.
That's awesome. That's just awesome, though. Mm-hmm. Now, on so many levels, right? Medically, politically, just the world and the country. Shifting gears just a little bit, is cannabis chipping away at alcohol sales?
Well, there's not a lot of data that I could point to right now that would say yes, absolutely. But we do know, if you look at the 10K filings of some of the major alcohol companies, Jack Daniels, the Boston Beer Company, which owns Sam Adams, they have all identified cannabis as something with potential to eat into alcohol sales. So we know they're worried about it, and we know that alcohol companies are eyeing the cannabis space. Constellation Brands, which they own over 100 wine, spirits, and beer brands throughout the world, including Corona. They just recently bought a 10% stake in the largest Canadian marijuana company. So they're making significant.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was a major development, and we're likely to see more come in the near future. It just kind of depends on how policy evolves on the federal level here in the United States. So while, like I said, I don't have hard data that says absolutely this is happening, all signs point to yes, it probably will eat into alcohol sales, especially if you're seeing, the proof is in the pudding. We're seeing alcohol companies identify this in their annual reports, and we're seeing them try to get into the marijuana industry themselves. So yes, I think it definitely will take a bite out of the alcohol industry.
Now, Eli, is competition fierce in this industry?
It really depends on the state you're talking about. Again, federal, you can kind of go back to it's a marijuana in the U.S. illegal at the federal level. So each state, you can think of each state as having its own unique marijuana industry. So if you look at Florida, for example, that's a major medical market with currently there's less than 10 companies there operating retail marijuana stores. That is set to increase, and it will increase in the near future, but there's over 100,000 patients in that state. So these companies have the potential to be some of the largest marijuana companies in the United States.
Wow.
But you juxtapose that against Oregon, for example, where there's really that recreational market. There's no caps on the number of cultivators, retailers, infused product manufacturers in the state, and there's close to 1,000 cultivation licenses that have been issued throughout Oregon, and so the competition is incredibly fierce there. Recently the state's attorney general voices concern that because prices were going so low and you've got so many growers in the state, they're concerned that these growers are going to divert some of their product out of the state and into other states, into the black market in other states, just because they're not able to receive the kind of prices that allow them to stay afloat. So yeah, the competitive landscape, certainly in recreational markets, is incredibly fierce. If you were thinking about entering Colorado or Washington State now, you would need tens of millions of dollars to make a legitimate play into those industries, just because how saturated those markets are. But like I said, in other states, the competition, just the way the states wrote the laws for their marijuana programs, the competition is limited, and companies really like to get into states where the competition is limited. It's just a better way of doing business. But yes, suffice it to say that competition is fierce in most parts of the industry.
And once this is federally legalized, which it will be eventually,
Sure.
Getting in as a small company is going to be literally impossible.
Yeah, it very much could be. I think the thinking among many in the industry is the time is now if you want to get in to the industry, you're going to need to look for states that are going to be less competitive than some of these saturated markets like Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. And you may only have, nobody really knows what that timeline is for federal legalization, but like you said, it's coming, it will come. And people believe now is the time to build your business into something that is going to be attractive for larger businesses to acquire. Yes, the timeline for making a play into the marijuana industry is shrinking, and once the federal legalization happens, it will become much more difficult. Capital requirements are already high, and they could increase exponentially with federal legalization.
It's just a baby industry that's just about to explode very fast.
Yes, it is.
Now, Eli, turning now briefly to MJ Biz Daily, could you please tell us what the company does and how you personally became involved with cannabis, and what is your position there?
Sure. So the company is we're a media and events organization. So we cover, on the media side with our website, we cover the business of marijuana. So not really anything that's happening on, necessarily consumers would be interested, but for those in the industry and those interested in becoming a part of the industry, we're covering just what's happening on the business side. So, financing deals, what's going on as far as regulation in certain states, that kind of thing. So, we're also, like I said, an events company. We've had until this year.
A huge events company, by the way.
Yes, yeah.
Not just an events company.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So we have industry conferences. We've had 2 a year, one in Las Vegas, which has been kind of our flagship event. Last year we attracted close to 19,000 cannabis industry professionals were at our event in Las Vegas, and then we've had a roaming conference in the spring, which we had in DC last year, which we just had last week we had in New Orleans, and we'll actually stay in New Orleans in the spring for the next couple of years. And then we're also launching this year for the first time an international conference, which we will have in Canada this August. So yeah, the content that we're writing about and that we're covering kind of drives the traffic to our shows, and we're beginning to evolve our international presence with our shows here in the near future. As far as my role in it, I'm the research editor there, so I have a weekly feature, which is kind of a chart of the week that is featured on our site. I am the lead author and writer of the Marijuana Business Fact Book, which is an annual report that covers kind of all aspects of the marijuana industry. And then I have a hand in some of the other smaller reports that we're releasing throughout the year. So mostly I'm just working with, I'm kind of the data guy there at Marijuana Business Daily. I came from Nielsen, where I was an analyst for consumer packaged goods. And then, the cannabis industry kind of caught my eye. In consumer packaged goods, if you saw 4% annual growth, like that product, whatever that product was doing really well. And in the cannabis space, 4%.
No comparison, right?
Really, yeah, you don't really see that. So I was just really kind of attracted by everything that was going on in the marijuana industry. And so I was an avid reader of Marijuana Business Daily. And in 2016, they had a position open for an analyst. I applied, and that is really how I got involved.
From Nielsen, the expert on the team. Now, Eli, turning back briefly to California, with this new industry, there's been a lot of challenges as far as regulations go, that new companies are sort of hitting the wall. Mm-hmm. And that's something I want to cover before we end, because it's something to really look out for and for everyone to be aware of.
Yeah. So the tricky part about the marijuana industry is people and states and regulators are learning as they go. So laws and regulations are always in flux. And state regulators aren't out there to hurt businesses, to drive businesses, into the red. But the fact is that a lot of times, the regulations when they first come, they have room for improvement. So they're always evolving, always changing. And that can be, that can really take its toll on marijuana companies.
And so what happened was, I understand a lot of the companies actually weren't approved. They got their companies up and going, and then, whoa, you can't operate.
Yeah. And California is a unique case. I spoke to a little bit earlier in that you need a license from the locality in which you're operating, and you need a license from the state. Now, if you don't have a license from, say you're in San Francisco, for example, you would have to get a license from San Francisco to operate your business. And then once you got that local license, you would go to the state. You would try to get a state license. The state will not license anybody that does not have a license from the locality in which they're located. So a lot of towns and counties throughout California just have not set up rules for recreational marijuana businesses. So say you lived in a county or a city that just does not have this process in place for you to apply to be, a recreational marijuana business, it is impossible for you to get a state license. Where that's become a big problem is that many of these businesses were operating either illegally or with, maybe some tacit approval by a local government, but they're not able to translate that into an official state licensed business. And so, estimates put the number of cities throughout California with laws on the books to license recreational businesses at about 20%. So most of the state does not have these processes in place. And so it's created a lot of trouble for companies.
Didn't it result in like 14,000 companies or some crazy number getting issued paperwork that said, so it's a little bit of a hurdle that's taken place. And so it's a lesson.
Yeah, it is. California is just a state to keep an eye on. There's growing pains in that state for sure. But like I said, I think the long-term outlook, this is the largest marijuana market in the world.
Yes.
Long-term, it's a great market with a lot of opportunity. Short-term, they are really still wrestling with how to square this, state and local licensing process. So there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be hiccups. And they have a big entrenched black and gray market that kind of is hanging over their head. So it'll be one to keep an eye on and see how everything develops there.
It's just wild because there's so much innovation, there's so much money, incredible money coming in.
Yes.
And all of a sudden the state says, oh, you know what I mean? Sort of
yeah. Some of our craziest stories and most fun stories to read are about just what's happening in California. It's certainly a good one to watch.
Well, Eli, this has been an amazing interview. How can everybody follow your work?
You can follow my work on Marijuana Business Daily. Like I said, I have a regular feature that appears on the site every Monday, Chart of the Week. And you can reach me at my email address, elim@mjbizdaily.com.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
No, I appreciate it, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Eli McVey, research editor at MJ Biz Daily and the 2018 Marijuana Business Factbook. For the Cannabis Innovators Show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.